Lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and I have the pleasure and privilege of getting you and myself started on chapter 8 in this series. Boyo Teta. So quality, right? It is a supreme genus. Most people intuitively know that it is a supreme genus and that quantity is a supreme genus. If you think about it, even in high school, I can remember boys and even myself who were definitely not philosophically inclined or interested in anything abstract or anything beyond the flesh and bones of life, saying, oh, well, it's quantity versus quality. We all sort of instinctively knew that it was supreme genera. But anyway, let's continue on. So we've capped off with that opening sentence, that broadside. All right, let's get into the finer details. So, boyo teta de lego kathain boyoi tines ainai legontai. So, what sortish? Like, boyoi is, I love saying that, isn't that the best word? Especially for an Aussie. It actually sounds like it should be Aussie slang. Anyway, boyoi is, it means like what sort. It's a interrogative sort of adjective question word. What sort, in what way, and tines is like certain, of what kind. So when you combine the two, it's really intense. It's like, really tell me what certain type it is, what sort it is, right? So or how you would qualify it. Okay. Esti de he boyotes don pleonakos legomenon. So pleonakos, in many ways, in many forms, it is said. So there are many ways of speaking about quality. Henmenun aedos boyotetos hexis kai diathesis leges thosan. Alright, so this is really what's the perfect expression for this? I didn't want to do that, bro. Give me this. Hexis kai diathesis. Really, he's going to write a whole book on the virtues, right? On ethics and stuff, and this is the centerpiece. All right. Hexis is habit, and in habit, you have virtue and vice. All right, virtue and vice. What makes you vicious? What makes you virtuous? In here, diathesis is disposition, what you're disposed to doing. Legestosan, right? So these things are spoken of as one form or one species, eidos. You remember this word from chapter 5? Maybe even chapter 3. Can't remember. So this is of one way of speaking of one species of quality, and that is habit and disposition. Okay, all habits are dispositions, but not all dispositions are habits. He'll actually say that later on. This is actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, getting too excited. Let me just continue on. Differai, so it differs. Differai de hexis diathesios toi polu chronioteron ainai kai monimoteron. Right? So habit differs from diathesios, from the dispositions, in being, in the way that it is pollu, much. Like pollu is a modern Greek word, I know, but here it's meaning like much more long lasting. Chronioteron is like chronos, time, ioteron, like more so, more timely, much more lasting. Ainai kai monimoteron, which also means lasting, but just means like stable or steady too. So more stable, more steady. Okay, so habit is longer lasting in time, and it is more stable. Okay, more substantial in a way if you consider it that way. Toyao dai de hai de epistemai kai hai aretai. Right, so of these as well, of what we're speaking about, we have the knowledges, the sciences, epistemai, Kei hai aretai. And the virtues, the excellences. All right. So aretai can just mean, it could even mean hai aretai could mean the excellent women in a way. But because arete, excellence or virtue, is a feminine noun, that's why it's hai arete. And so the knowledges like logic, maths, music, art, especially like think of Gustave Doré and his sketches, all these sorts of things, even economics and warfare, the knowledge of warfare, I should say, and all these sorts of things. These are long-lasting and stable, and so are the virtues. Okay, your virtue is not something you do just once in the morning and now you're virtuous. It is something that you do most mornings across, like, say, the whole year. Your New Year's resolution was to have more self-control, and every morning you get out of bed when your alarm goes off, right, without fail. Okay, so and you do that for a whole year and you have self-control, you're virtuous. Let's continue on. Hei, tegar episteme dokaiton paramonimon. Are there any English words that have that sort of sound in it? Monimon, or like monim. Anyway, paramonimon aina kai duskineton. So knowledge, or a science in particular, it seems to be more enduring. Paramonimon. It's like this word up here, monimoteron, but more intense. It means like enduring or resilient. Okay, so knowledge seems to be more enduring and difficult to dislodge or difficult to move. So kineton, from like kinesis, movement, and dyskeneton, which means difficult or difficult to move. So ian kai metrios tis episteme lave. So even if like more measurely some knowledge is taken, ian per me megale metabole genetai hyponosu e alutinos toyuto. So the only real way that, if consider any sort of knowledge that you might have or someone else might have. So take a rocket scientist, for example. He spent his life doing rocket science. The only real thing that's going to dislodge rocket science from his mind, his own particular accidents, is like some disease or something of that kind. So we can imagine that like a tragedy befalls him in a car crash and he loses his memory. He gets like amnesia or something. Or maybe some serious illness leaves him in a coma or something. And then like takes away his knowledge of rocket science. I don't want to get too specific with that. I think we can all, we've all heard of tragedies on the news or whatever, of such things happening to people where their mind is affected in a severe way. So the philosopher is acknowledging that. He's admitting that that can be the case. But besides these extreme things, knowledge seems to stay quite stable throughout our lives. So, so in the same way, virtue. Hoyon e dikaosune kai he sofrosune. So dikaosune kai he sofrosune is are two examples of virtues. So dikaosune is justice, legal justice, or even justice in the family. So back in those times, still today, but definitely in those times, especially in Roman early Republic and Middle Republic and the whole Republic and early and Middle Empire, they had pater familias, which means like the father is the head of the household, and to such a degree that the very lives of the family members were in the father's hands, right? So the father had the power of life and death over you until you left the home and became your own man, or if you're a girl, you were married and moved off, okay, to another household. The father had all control, okay, for better or for worse. So that can mean that too, not just in a legal sense, but also in these like family contexts and even in war as well. Okay, how you treat the captured soldiers. Okay, are you going to make an example of them? Are you going to send them back? What are you going to do? All right. And sophrosune is self-control. It can also mean prudence, which is obviously extraordinarily close to being exactly self-control. But prudence has the idea of forethought a bit more than just self-control. What else can it mean? It can mean I'm just going to stick with those two because I'm actually not too certain about the other translations. I don't want to just babble on and say something that's not true. Kai hikaston ton toyuton. So other things like courage and whatnot, all the other virtues have the same logic. Okay, paramonimon and duskeneton, right? They are difficult to dislodge. They are enduring. Okay, so you'll have them even if you're having a bad day. That's a good way to diagnose if you've got a disposition or a habit. Okay, even if you're having a bad day, you still act in that way. What's a good example? Someone in strife. You know what? I've got the perfect one. These two. I want to use these two pictures. Piety. If you've read the Aeneid, if I'm pronouncing that right, Virgil's epic poem, Aeneas has huge amounts of piety. Even when things go wrong, he still commits to the relationship with his God, right? Like with specifically Aphrodite and even Zeus in a way. So this is another example, a more modern example. You know, you can have someone weeping in all sorts of strife, but still commits to their piety, their religiousness. And religion is a virtue, which we will get to, of course, in the future. So that's one example. Another example too, like if you're confused and whatnot, and you're not sure why something is happening to you, and you still commit to that religion and piety, that is virtue. Okay, that can be called grace as well. But a perfect example of that is in the book of Job. You know, Job is covered in these pussy bleeding sores, and he's sitting on a pile of horse and animal excrement in pretty much naked, and he's lost all his children and his home, and he's the most pious man, and he's perfect, and he's real too, because Jesus does make reference to him as if he was a real man. So we know he was a real man, unless well, I don't even need to explain unless. So Job's sitting there, and his wife comes out and goes, all that's left for you really is to bless God and die. And that could just be a euphemism for curse God and die, because the author didn't want to write curse God physically out of piety. And Job goes, no, you know, God sent me into this world naked and alone, and I'm going to leave it naked and alone. God gives and he takes. He makes it to rain on the wicked and just alike. So Job's piety is perfect. So he has a virtue in the highest order. Okay, it is more enduring. Paramonimon. Okay, duskeneton. Let's continue. Let's just finish on this sentence here. Eukeneton tokai ainai ud you metabolon. All right, so we're probably going to, we're going to see metabolonta in a second. So here he's talking about change, easily change. So you usually means well or good, but it can almost also mean like with facility, easily. So an easy change. All right, so it does not seem that is easily moved or easily changed. Seems to be. So all these habits are not easily changed or moved. I gave the example of Job, but I'm sure there are other examples that we can have a look at. This guy is showing courage. All right, he's in the raging seas on his boat. in a precarious position. I mean, if he gets launched out, he's done for. Okay, the horse still loyal to its master, hasn't sat down and died. I mean, not that horses or animals can have virtues, but it's just exemplifying the virtue. Don Quixote, even though the world is mocking him and against him, and he's facing giants, still has his courage, not easily changed, not easily moved. What else? One more example. I've given the example of piety, so I don't want to give another one of those. These boxers, to get in fighting shape, as they say, you need temperance and self-control. You need to be able to diet well and train well and have that discipline. And these two are in the ring because of that discipline and self-control, temperance, of course, and they're showing courage. So even when they land a severe blow, they still stay in the fight. They don't cower and go into the corner of the ring and lose that way. They stand firm and they commit to the fight. Okay, that's courage. That's greatness of spirit. And we'll finish it there. Okay, so hopefully that's clear about the difference. Because we've explained so much about habits, you've also learned how to identify dispositions, because they're the opposite. Okay, even this last sentence was sort of introducing that. So we'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. As always, si semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.